Diamondvale, Shattered Memories. By Eric Hoover. Chapter 24, No Holding Back. The clouds in the air were moving quickly as they were beginning to cover the sun. Down on the battlefield, Arya, Dante, and Arnav were all already sweating. Even with their combined efforts, they knew this was going to be a difficult struggle. As the three continued to breathe heavily, Rice asked if they were really his students, seeing how easily he was beating them. Dante and Arnav weren't bothered by the insult, but something within Arya lit up. She dashed past her friends and engaged the heavily favored opponent all by herself. When Rice saw that Arya had separated from the two boys, his plan was set into motion. Dante tried to warn Arya, but it was too late. With Arya a couple meters away from striking, Rice threw down a geode stone beneath her feet. From the geode stone, a giant mist appeared and encircled a large portion of the battlefield. Arya and Rice were caught inside while Dante and Arnav remained outside. Sensing Arya was in danger, they ran to the mist, but when they attempted to enter, they immediately fell out on the other side of the forest. No matter how hard they tried, they couldn't get in to help Arya. Dante's scanners couldn't identify a solution to their problem, while Arnav's sword swing couldn't cut into the mist. It seemed there was no physical barrier to break, but they wouldn't quit. The two kept working on a solution. Inside, Arya saw nothing but open space surrounded by the mist. When she tried to run through the mist, she would end up on the other side of the arena. She was worried initially that she was trapped inside alone until she noticed that her enemy was in front of her. She was glad that she was the one fighting Rice and not Dante or Arnav. Her opponent suddenly appeared within range to strike her with a right cross. At the last second, Arya blocked the attack with her forearms. She was pushed back towards the edge of the arena, and when her body made contact with the mist, her entire body went through. Just like before, she teleported to the other side of the battlefield. As she was still sliding back from the momentum, her back was now facing her enemy. Arya could sense she was vulnerable from behind. With haste, she turned around to reduce the impact by taking Rice's attack to the shoulder. In total, she had only taken 2 hits, but she could feel her arms shaking. The power behind the 2 punches was far stronger than she had anticipated. Although this would cause most a coward in fear, Arya was strangely energized by this feeling. The thrill of battle got her thinking on her feet, and after getting some air into her brain, she figured out a plan of attack. She dashed at Rice directly, only to be sent back by his counter. She was thrown with such force that she fell through the mist again and reappeared on the other side. Anticipating this would happen, Arya had her body turned around preemptively, and she used that momentum she gained to direct a punch right at Rice. He managed to block Arya's fist with his left arm, sending Arya back to the mist, but again she reappeared on the opposite side and attacked Rice from a different angle. Arya would keep using the special properties of the misty arena to keep pace with her opponent's power. Both fighters should have been getting slower and more fatigued as the battle drew on, but that was not the case. Instead, the 2 fighters seemed more energized with each exchange as their focus was completely locked in. Although Rice expected Arya to figure out how the effects of the misty arena worked, he was amazed by how quickly she came to that conclusion. He was proud, and in that moment, memories of his time in Zenith appeared in his mind. What he saw were all the times he helped train Arya's classmates. The greatest joy he felt was seeing them improve little by little each day. As Rice was reminiscing, Arya was still dialed in the fight. She could sense her opponent's focus slipping, but more importantly, she believed she had a chance to win. Arya saw an opening to land a right hook at the rib area, and she knew she had to take the chance. When her punch was about an inch away, a sudden light flashed before her eyes. At that moment, the memories of her entire life ran through her mind. First, the memories of her times with her family, then her friends at Diamondvale, and finally her times at the Amazon borderlands. After feeling the experience of having her life flash before her eyes, she was about to be engulfed by a radiant light. However, the light suddenly shattered and she saw Rice standing in her mind. He was impressed with how strong she had gotten in such a short span of time, and if she had another year, their battle would have been much closer. But because of the circumstance, he had to end the battle now. He told her to take care of everyone as he said goodbye. Arnav continued swinging his sword against the misty barrier, but nothing changed. Dante's computer had been searching for a solution and still couldn't find any. They were beginning to grow anxious waiting when they noticed the barrier of the mist was shrinking. They could see a silhouette of a person standing who appeared to be Arya's height. When the mist fully dissipated, they saw Arya's body standing, but her eyes were closed and slowly she began to faint. Thankfully, Rice caught her and placed her down gently to the ground. Dante and Arnav looked on in dismay as they saw their friend defeated. They could handle Arya being unable to beat Rice in a battle, but what caused them concern was the condition Arya was in. She seemed lifeless. The cyborg was seething with anger, but his opponent continued to stand still with his arms crossed. Dante's sensors were going off the charts. It constantly kept alerting him that his foe was too high of a threat level and that he should disengage immediately, but he refused to listen. He was about to switch into battle mode, but Arnav intervened. He tried to calm Dante down, but Rice provoked the cyborg by turning his back on them. In that instance, Dante's anger took over and he ignored all warnings his systems were giving him. His rocket boosters activated, leaving Arnav in his dust as he charged head-on against Rice. Arnav knew their chances of winning were slim, but at this point, there was no use holding back. He joined Dante in the fray. Amid his advance, Dante had his right arm transformed into a cannon. When he was in point-blank range, he was ready to unleash it at full power. Rice reacted by swatting the cyborg's arm, switching the new target of the cannon to Arnav. Dante tried to pull his cannon back, but it was too late. His cannon unleashed a pulse wave that was about to hit Arnav directly. Thankfully, Arnav held out his shield, which absorbed the attack. Dante was relieved to see his friend survive his attack without a scratch. But right as they let their guard down, Rice appeared behind Arnav, grabbing one of his forearms, forcing him to drop his shield. Seeing his comrade in pain, Dante was about to activate his thrusters to help Arnav. Rice stomped on Arnav's shield, flipping it up so he could grab it with his hand. He threw the shield and it clashed against one of Dante's thrusters, disrupting it. With only one thruster operational, Dante began flying around uncontrollably. Thinking Rice had his attention diverted, Arnav swung his sword, but his enemy slipped under it. He then picked up Arnav and threw him into the air. It was so well timed that when Arnav was about to drop, Dante slammed into him and together they came crashing down. The two warriors picked themselves up, breathing heavily. Arnav held his sword with shaking hands while Dante's systems warned him that he was in critical condition. They ignored it and stood ready to continue the fight. Rice told them to use their full power and stop holding back. Arnav looked at his geode stone for a moment, and all he could remember was when he had lost control of that power. Dante tried to power up, but his system kept telling him that he was at his limit. Rice walked over to the unconscious Arya and threatened that he would cause her and their other classmates further harm if they didn't fight him at full strength. Arnav fell to his knees holding the geode stone in his hand. He kept staring at the stone and thinking, what if he lost control again? He didn't want to hurt any of his friends. Dante's system continued to display, limit reached. Nothing changed and Rice was tired of waiting. He appeared before Willingham and Barman, ready to grab them. However, before he could do so, he sensed two masses of energies storming his way. First, he avoided a swift sword swing that forced him to jump away from Willingham and Barman. Then he had to face a barrage of missiles, which he had to strategically maneuver through. After dodging those attacks, he found himself facing two replenished fighters, Arnav, who activated his geode breaker, and Dante, whose screen had shattered so he could no longer see the words "limit reached,"